1. So a little bit of background context. And don't judge me for being so dumb about this. It was a time where I was really depressed and doing a lot of drugs. My two best friends were dating guys who were best friends. We decided it would be a great idea for me to start dating another one of the guy's best friends. I literally decided I would date this one guy, and then 2 weeks later, we started dating. Ladies or dudes, never choose a random person to complete a friendship group. It never works out. I wish I could slap some sense into the old me. So we start dating. Everything at first seems pretty normal. We're enjoying our time together and doing average couple things. Bad signs started to show pretty early in the relationship. I just wish I wouldn't have been so nervous to end the thing right then and there. First major red flag. After about 2 months of dating, he tells me, "I really like you, I want to burn your initials into my arm." I was seriously dumbfounded. I told him, please do not do that. Really, please don't. But he heats up a lighter and presses it into his skin and burns my initials straight in front of me. Watching him burn his own flesh definitely should have been enough for me to stop being with him. But it didn't. Over the next few months, he became very controlling. He only wanted to lay around in bed, didn't want me to go out of the house because he didn't, and did not want me smoking cigarettes anymore. You would really hate that I smoked, but dude, it's my life, my lungs, my health. I will never forget I made a deal with him that I'd only smoke like 2 more cigarettes this one night, while we were going to a concert. I get wasted and naturally want to smoke, so I light one up because, seriously, it's not a big deal. I will never forget this jackass has the balls to turn to me and say, "Look, I don't expect you to do many things, but I expect you to do as you're told." Right there, like the 100th red flag he showed me, but I still didn't break up with him. He pressured me to take a lot of drugs and to drink daily with him during school. I know I am my own person and I am responsible for my decisions, but he took advantage of me at one of my weakest points, and he knew that. As long as he could keep feeding me drugs and keep me silent, he didn't care. He took class control. When he felt like he had me under his grasp, he started trying to flirt and be with my best friend. He would walk her to class and always make such an effort for her and not me. I'm happy that I always view it, and still do, as chicks over dicks. I never got angry at her because it had nothing to do with her, it was him. He even asked to have a threesome together. Like, wow, you have some nerve, dude. I was so unhappy in this relationship. I'm not saying what I did was right, but definitely was the best decision I made. I started talking to my new boyfriend while I was still dating the crazy one. He was from Austria, and we had met before in person. He was a friend of a friend. On a side note, we're still together now after 5 years and are very happy. I still feel it was the best decision. To get back to the story. All the unhappiness, controllingness, and new romance had clearly brought me finally to a breaking point. I dumped that dude. And here's where the story actually begins. Sorry for the long preface, but this is not a short story. After I broke up with him, this guy sent me all different kinds of pictures of him self-harming himself. He sent me a picture with my initials burned out of his arm. He asked me why did I dump him. He was an emotional disaster at this point, so I agreed to meet him in the hallway at school and tell him everything. About the new guy and all. I will never forget this meeting. He was a good 10 feet away from me, but I could smell him so badly, and had to breathe through my mouth so I didn't feel nauseous. He was so dirty after a few days of not being together. He just snapped. I told him what happened, and he made my life a living hell for it. He would non-stop blow up my phone with text messages describing ways he wanted to murder my family, but leave me and one sister alive so we would have to suffer and feel pain for the rest of our lives. He wouldn't stop texting me all through the school day, threatening that he's gonna beat the shit out of me and come outside and face him so he could beat my ass. He started doing heroin, and would text me that it's all my fault he's a drug addict, and that I should hate myself because look what I've created him to be. The texts went on and on with graphic descriptions of all the ways he planned to kill me and those I loved. I wish I would have called the police and gotten a restraining order against him. He has harassed me, chased me, and mentally abused me. He told lies about me that I slept with some guys I was friends with and broke up my friendships. And he just didn't stop. It took until the day his parents sent him to rehab across the country in Utah, and for him to not be able to contact me for over a year for him to stop. Never in my life have I had someone threaten to kill my family or make me suffer, and describe it so accurately. He was a huge gun fanatic and had multiple weapons, so I was honestly scared for our lives. I wish I told someone, because the entire situation escalated so intensely, and I realized I really needed an adult's help. Please guys, seek help when you're in an abusive relationship. It took years for me to recover mentally and a lot of therapy. Finally, the nightmares have stopped. No one should have to go through this without a support system. 2. Please be aware that while no animal cruelty takes place within the story, reference is made. I am an avid and experienced urban explorer. I have visited many different abandoned sites. This place I'm writing about has been explored several times by others since, but when I visited it wasn't a common knowledge location, and all the buildings were still intact except for the main house, which had, from what I had heard, burned, leaving nothing but the outer stone wall. Nothing but the outer wall remains. All other buildings were torn down since I was there. To more recent urban explorers, it is known as the Stone Castle, and more recently the Oyster Castle. This is the name given by the Heritage Society that has decided to fix it up. When my boyfriend at the time discovered it, he saw it in the distance from a roof he was working on in Oromodonte, Ontario. There was, but not anymore, a large barn, a carriage house, and towards the back of the property, a stable. The first weekend we both had off together, we made the hour drive to explore it. The property was absolutely stunning. On the top of a hill back from the road, you could almost imagine living surrounded by such beauty. And we did exactly that. The house itself was gone except for the wall, and if you looked in the basement window, you could see an old stove laying amongst the wreckage. You could tell it had been a beautiful home at one time, to whomever owned it. Being the explorer I was, I insisted that we investigate every single corner of every single building that was on the property. And although my ex was less than enthusiastic about it, I insisted. I honestly did not see the point of driving for an hour just to look at the outside of the buildings. No, I had to go in the buildings. The first building we explored was the barn, both upstairs and down. Down in the basement of the barn is where things went from wow to holy shit really fast. In the basement, it had been used as a place for satanic sacrifices. There was satanic artwork all over, a knife with what appeared to be blood on it, and an altar with black candles, a bottle of what smelled like blood. The most disturbing piece was that whatever satanic group was using it, they had built a makeshift cage out of the silo with chains inside and everything. My boyfriend at the time wanted to get the heck out of there as fast as possible, but I convinced him to stay so we could explore the rest of the buildings on the property. I told him it was probably just a bunch of kids, just screwing around, no big deal, right? Wrong. Our next stop was the stables at the back of the property, and honestly, I was so caught up in my love for exploring that he would not have been able to persuade me to leave without going in every single building no matter what. I opened the door into the stable, and the smell hit me. Rotting flesh. The entire room was littered with animal corpses, dogs, cats, rabbits, even coyotes, and foxes. They had been horribly mutilated. It was absolutely the worst thing I have ever laid my eyes on. As soon as my boyfriend saw that, he grabbed me and said that we're leaving right at that moment, and that killing animals is not stupid kids doing stupid things. This is some serious shit. So we started to leave. But there was one more building I wanted to check out on the way out, the carriage house. He said no effing way we were going there, and stomped off up the hill back to the main house, assuming I would follow. I didn't follow. I went around the hill by myself and took a quick peek in the carriage house. The carriage house was anticlimactic. It had absolutely nothing in it. It's actually a good thing that I snuck off like I did, because if I hadn't, we wouldn't have seen them coming. They would have been able to sneak up on us as we were coming up the hill and do God knows what to us. The first one I noticed was an adult male with a baseball bat. He had actually opened our car door and was rifling through things in our car, trying to find a key, I'm guessing. There were about 8 people in total in the group, ranging from adults, I would say, in their 30s to teenagers, and children no more than 12 or 13. They all had weapons, golf clubs, sticks, a cane, and baseball bats. I yelled at the guy what the hell he thought he was doing going through our car, and my boyfriend came charging over the hill, bless his heart, right through the posse of creeps and weirdos who seemed to be lying in wait for us. It appeared we had ruined whatever plans they had in mind because they immediately backed off. Some even tried to hide their weapons behind their backs, which was just stupid if you asked me. Who wouldn't notice a baseball bat behind somebody's back? Baseball bat guy demanded to know what we were doing there, and I demanded to know what the hell he thought he was doing in our car. He didn't answer, just looked at me all nervous. My ex-boyfriend said we were just admiring the architecture of the house that we were just leaving, and they just let us get into our car and drive off, which in itself was a miracle, I'd say, in light of what we had discovered on the property. They followed us in a black pickup with no plates for a good 20 minutes. Instead of heading for home, we went to the closest city, which was Barrie, Ontario, filed a report with a policeman, who seemed more shaken than us, and headed home. My ex never went back to that roofing job again. He had someone else finish it, and he went to another one. I wanted to go back, but after telling people what happened, I couldn't find anyone to go with me. My ex and I continued various explorations, but we both started carrying knives. I still carry one to this day, even when I hike. I have not read of anyone else having similar experiences at Satan's Castle. Recently, my cousin, who is also an explorer, contacted me with a place she wanted to explore. Guess where? And guess what? We've made arrangements to go there in the next couple of weeks. So on that note, and many years later, Satan's Castle cult. Let's hope we don't meet again. And to any other urban explorers out there, please be careful. You never know what you might come across in these abandoned places. 3. This happened about a year ago. I was really into Twitter back then. It was an easy way to tell gay jokes and figure out if they landed or not. Most of the time they didn't. But my complete obliviousness to my own lack of humor must have been charming to some, because I'd often get PMs from my also gay followers. Sometimes we'd chat, sometimes we'd flirt. I received a PM from this one guy, Nori, because that's a stupid name. Nori was a very pleasant-looking guy, around 20 years old, fair skin, light ginger hair. I'm a sucker for gingers, so I got excited and we set up a date before I knew anything about him, or even bothered to read his last 3 tweets. We decided to meet the next day. I was at the right place at the right time. However, he was nowhere to be found. I double-checked to make sure. He shows up, nearly 1 hour later, at the wrong place. I drag my feet to him. Normally, this wouldn't be enough to annoy me, but this was a very hot summer day, and walking in Lisbon is equivalent to running on a treadmill inside a microwave with shattered glass. Nori was a charming guy. He was a little bit chubbier than I thought he'd be, but I could get behind that. I could literally get behind that. It became very apparent that he was incredibly shy, though. Without a text to communicate, all his flirtiness was gone, and all that was left was a gawky young man. He decided to sit down at a cafe and talk for a while. He was obviously a student. I asked him what he's studying. I can't replicate his exact answer, but something biology. Alright, cool. I thought biology is very important. My mind immediately connected biology with medicines, cures, treatments, maybe HP potions. So I followed up with a poorly thought out question like, oh cool, do you plan on working in medicine or something like that? No, I'm inclined to weapon manufacturing. What was that? I couldn't hear you over the batshit insane thing my brain just interpreted your words as, because no one in their right mind strings those words together to form a sentence. I spent a few seconds trying to find an answer to that, but finally my brain desperately came up with, oh well, Necessary evil, I guess? At this point, the date turns into something less like a date and more of a mental health clinical interview. Of course, Nori wasn't done. He wanted to show me just how deep he was into biological weapons. Before I have an opportunity to interject, he asks, "Have you seen the effects biological weapons dropped had on children?" "Oh yeah, those nasty effects. Wait, why children?" My brain was going into overload because this is the single most loaded rhetorical question I had ever been asked. At the time, there was some controversy going on over the usage of biological weapons, and I think he was referring to that. But I can't give any details of that event because honestly I thought it was too gruesome for me to get informed on. Still, what the hell, why children? Having the functionality of a forgotten computer with Windows XP still installed, my brain fully quit before he even finished asking that question. Only later I realized there was no need to ask my information of the effects it had on children. It's like this spoon had read the 101 on Psychopathy by Ed Gein, but has stopped before the chapter where he teaches people how to create beautiful DIY couches using their dog's skin. I was terrified, honestly, realizing I might be on a date with either a future cattle rapist or the next big name in the Wikipedia series of notorious killers. I knew I had to change the subject before I became actually ill, and what better way to do that than going deeper into the rabbit hole? I asked him about his hobbies and interests, desperately trying to draw attention from the fact that my balls were deeper in my ball cave than his balls were into cattle. "Well, I'm really interested in eugenics." "Well, mother of all fucks." I stayed silent for a while, something Nori interpreted as an invitation to develop the theme, instead of a fear-induced response. "You see, I really enjoy thinking about things like the perfect human, and what we'd need to do to create him through selective breeding and such." This time my mouth ran faster than my still blue-screened brain, and I informed him that the Nazis in Nazi Germany had very similar dangerous ideas. Now I was the one ranting about the atrocities the Nazis had inflicted on people, finishing with something along the lines of, "Hitler was a twat." Nori seemed a bit flushed, but nonetheless he courageously struggled to mutter, "Nazis weren't bad." No, I'm not that much of a love guru, but I'm pretty sure Nazis weren't bad is not the three words anyone wants to hear in a somewhat romantic context. Granted, at this point romance was long dead, and all that was left was the rotting corpse of what was once my hope of ever getting a nice date. I'm paralyzed by this person's obvious lack of self-awareness, or any other kind of awareness, as he rambles on about the great Dr. Mengele's discoveries, and how so much of our modern technology was owed to the Nazi. Finishing with something along the lines of, "Yeah, I mean, killing people was bad, but..." I'm not even sure anymore if he gave a justification to the killing. Just as well as I'm not sure if this guy wanted to bone me or if he wanted my actual bones. I'm frantically texting my friend to phone me immediately, trying to come up with an excuse to leave this scenario ASAP, but she leaves me hanging for a while. A good while. All the while, this guy and I are staring blankly at the river without uttering a word. The silence is broken by Nori a couple of times, to emit what I think was an attempt of giggling like an Ubermensch anime girl. There's a line between a cute giggle and a terrifying one, and I'd say the biological warfare-loving Nazi giggling is not cute in any context. Other than the random giggling, he only spoke once to say, "You have nice skin." Alright, never mind. He did read that chapter. My friend calls me. I begin talking nonsense to her. "Oh what? I'm late for the theatre play? Well, son of a motherless goat." To which my friend responded with increasing confusion. "You got the tickets? Great, I'll meet you guys in a bit." Finally, she took the cue and played along. Nori was obviously not happy about me leaving after we spent a quarter of an hour in silence. He seemed a bit more confrontational. "Why are you leaving? I thought you were free the whole afternoon." If a tad distracted because of my sudden farewells, I told him it had been really nice. But I had to run now, so catch him later. Nori stood where I left him, and I briskly sprinted out of there like a cat with a fiery tail. All the while I'm walking my way home, carefully looking over my shoulder, making sure I'm not being followed. After I got home, I locked everything and took a bath, even though I knew I wouldn't feel any cleaner. I have no idea what happened to Nori. Some days later, after I blocked him on WhatsApp, I noticed he replied to one of my tweets with something racist. One of my followers jumped on him, and I was quick to block him there too. I hope he found the mental clinic he sorely needs, and I hope we never meet again. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 3 True Scary Stories, episode 316. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. As I yet again forgot to do it in Friday's video, I'll just give you the weekly reminder that we have episode 100 of the Paranormal series coming up. If you have any questions you'd like to submit, whatever they may be, then just pop them in the description of any video, and I'll collect them and get them answered as soon as I can in time for the Q&A. Okay, and with that I think I'll head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.